Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Welcome to the Dom Trap. I'm back. Hope that everything is going well on your end. Hopefully you're smiling during these trying times. Hopefully everything is going well, including your mental, of course, including your family, and hopefully you're able to make it to where you gotta go, because the way these gas prices are, things are changing. But like I said before, welcome back to the Dom Trap. I miss you guys. I know it's been a while. I was supposed to have a guest on this episode, Lex, but he'll be on here soon. I also have plans to have Hailey on. I'm gonna have my boy Andrew on, aka Rue Plays Games, on Twitch and YouTube and Twitter. Follow him on all those places. Also, I'm planning some things. I have some really good surprises in the works, so just bear with me here and stay on for the ride. Man, I really feel like I forgot how to do this stuff, but day by day. Also, if you're listening to this episode and you haven't followed me on Twitch, I don't know what you're doing. Follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/DomOGary. That's DOMOGARY. For nothing but vibes and great times and great people. And I was going to find something that rhymes, but I rhyme all the time. I'm straight like a line. All right, I'm done. All right, so it is as of the day that I'm recording, it is March 23rd. And the biggest movie, quote unquote, of the month was The Batman, or is The Batman. This movie is still making its rounds, and I want to talk to you guys about it. So, The Batman, which should have been called Vengeance. It's a movie that I've been waiting a while for. It's the dark, it's the gritty, it's the sometimes disturbing. Probably one of the most disturbing takes of live action Batman that we've ever gotten. And I'll go on record as saying that. I think that this movie is darker than some of the other live action Batman adaptations that we have received. It's full of that Detective Comics goodness, It's a lot more street level. It's less fantastical. There's no Mr. Freeze. There's no, Man-Bat. There's no Batmite. None of the super duperficial. There's no Scarecrow. None of the super duperficial Batman villains are in this anyway. It's more of the the Riddler or the Penguin, Carmine Falcone. People that could be, or characters that could be real people in the real world, which I enjoyed. This movie is probably one of the most realistic versions of Batman. Granted, it is taking place in this place called Gotham City, which, let me just say this. This movie has done Gotham City better than any other live action Batman adaptation. And I might say that a few more times. I might keep saying that this movie does things better than some other things, and as far as Batman adaptations go, but that's just because I'm being honest. Now, in this movie, Gotham City feels like a real place. It doesn't feel like a reskinned New York or a reskinned Philadelphia. It feels like it's its own thing. It's just dark and it's crime and it's raining all the time. It's almost like the city is a character in itself. It's breathing. And it inhabits these terrible people doing terrible things all the time. And it feels hopeless. Let's just say that. Gotham in this movie feels like a hopeless place. The people that are struggling, they don't really have a way out. The people that have a way out aren't getting out. They're making it harder for the people that don't have a way out. These people, these politicians rather, they are in it for money. They are in it for the girls. They are in it for the wrong reasons. Drugs. I mean, we've seen that. You have these people that are supposed to be the planners. They're supposed to be like, hey, let's make this place a better place to live in. Let's make Gotham City a better city to live in. But they're doing the exact opposite. They're in these criminal filled undergrounds. They're dealing with these terrible people that have money, of course. And it's just all because of years of shady business deals. And you soon find out why that is in the movie. Now, with this movie, with it being as dark as it is, and as long as it is, there's a lot of playroom here. And when I say there's a lot of playroom, I mean that there's just a lot that can happen in this movie, or that could happen in this movie, because of how long it is. For example, many parts of the Batman feels like a horror movie of sorts. And what I mean by this, I mean that there are literally scenes from this movie that you could possibly put in a Saw movie as a trailer, and people would say, oh yeah, let's go see that new Saw movie. Seriously. There are traps in this movie. There's a death at the beginning of the movie that you know is coming, but like it feels like it lasts a long time. It's like you see every gruesome detail of this death. I don't want to spoil exactly what that death is, but it's just like it's like I said, it's disturbing in a way, because I mean, growing up, I used to kind of like cringe at, watching people get hanged in movies and stuff, because it felt so real. I think the realest version of that was in Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight. And so seeing deaths like this, not the ones that are just super quick and out of here, you see a character, you're sort of introduced to this character, and then you just see them be dispatched in this long and drawn out fashion. And it's like, that's cool, but what movie am I watching again? And like, there are some times where if he didn't put on a bat suit, if he was just another dude in like a tailor-made suit, this movie would honestly be better. And I hate that I have to say that, because I don't love Batman as a character, but I like Batman as a character. But if this movie was what it was without the Batman, thing, and you know what I mean when I say the Batman thing. If it was this without that, if it was that without this would be a much better film. There's a scene in particular, it takes place during a funeral, and I didn't really expect it to go where it went, because the scene is somewhat in one of the trailers. I actually tried to avoid this trailer because I was like, I don't want to know whose funeral it is. I don't want to know anything about this scene. I just want to go into the movie blind, basically. And I got spoiled when I went to go and see Uncharted. And if you watched my last episode, you know how I feel about that movie. That scene in the church during the funeral was probably one of the most tension-filled scenes that I've seen in months. Like, there's, if you've ever seen Evil Genius, and on Netflix, and what kickstarts that miniseries, then you know what you're getting yourself into. There is a guy who is beyond help at this point. There's no helping this guy out. All he can do is do what somebody is telling him to do. You know that he's a dead man, but it's just a matter of, will he make it out, and can he make it out? So me being me, I was kind of hoping that he would make it out. So I was kind of like on the edge of my seat, like, all right, where are we going with this? I like this. I like this a lot. Like, if you're going to get him out of here, let's do it. Let's get right to it. And it's like, all right, cool. Really gruesome scene of this man. He has a family. He's pleading for his life. He's begging. And it's just like, look at how this man has physically, mentally, and emotionally deteriorated in front of us. And it's just like, it's out of my hands. There's nothing I can do about it. It's a film. But yeah, really gruesome scenes with gruesome details. But like, it was just so fun watching that scene, because you knew that he was going to go, but it just felt like it took forever. It felt like it took entirely too long for that moment to happen. And the payoff as well It pays off really, really good. The payoff is exactly what you were expecting. It's exactly what you were looking for. This movie is a Batman movie, so like I said before, it has its Batman-isms. You know, there's the guy that you got to feel bad for because his parents passed away. But this version of him, he's so focused on the past that he can't enjoy what he has in the present or look forward to anything in the future. That's how bad off this guy is right now. So like watching this, it's like, you know, he's a younger version of Bruce Wayne, where, you know, when are we going to get the Playboy version of him? And like, there's no rush for that in this movie. This movie is basically a Batman timepiece. It's look at Batman at this young age, at this sterile mental state, and go crazy with it. You know? The fights feel like fights. It's just not like choreographed anything. He's super sloppy when he fights, which adds to that effect of it looking real. He gets hit a lot. I feel like every fight that he was in, somehow, some way, that man Bruce Wayne was, one second guys, that man was getting hit in the bat with something. YouTube people, if you're watching, I'm just being sloppy right now. I'm doing things during the recording, but it makes things easier. All right, cool. All right, so lights back on. Thank you for coming. But yeah, it's a really, really gruesome take of the character. It's a fun film. It does what it needs to do in the time that it has, and I can't be mad at it. When I first finished watching the movie, I thought to myself, okay, people are either going to hate this movie, they're either going to love this movie, or just like it. And for me, I just liked it after I finished watching it. But the craziest thing happened, and after I watched the movie, after I had some time to go to sleep and wake up and live life a little bit, I could not stop thinking about the movie, which I thought that was super weird. I just could not stop thinking about the movie. And I thought to myself maybe about a week ago, I'm like, hey, look, I can't stop thinking about it. Then it has to be something with the movie. The movie has to be a good movie if I am not able to just forget about it. And I even thought about watching it again, but I think I'm just going to wait until it's on HBO Max because I don't really feel like sitting in a theater for almost 3 hours again. So, yeah. When it comes to pandemic movies, this one is among one of the best. It's a breath of fresh air, really, because we've been given some stinkers, I should say. We were given some films that are just some stinkers, and we had to deal with it because of it being a pandemic movie, which is okay, I guess. I mean, we had to deal with what we had to deal with, but at the same time, we deserve so much better, you know? So this movie is, I can say, The Batman is a good movie. Granted, The Batman should have been called Batman. It should have been called Vengeance, but it's a good movie nonetheless. And for that reason, I have to give this movie an 8 out of 10. Now, granted, Robert Pattinson's Batman isn't my favorite. For solid reasons, he's just not my favorite. He just wasn't too convincing in this role. But I will say that we got a great Riddler. We got a fantastic Jim Gordon. We got one of the best live action adaptations of Catwoman. So you can't be mad at this. And when it comes to the Nolan trilogy, I'm not pitting two kings against each other. I just can't do that. I cannot pit two kings against each other. I just can't. So yes, with that being said, The Batman is an 8 out of 10 film. I enjoyed it for what it was. I just didn't take it for, anything light. Do what you want with my review. Oh yeah, let's talk about some of the performance, matter of fact, before I get off of this subject. I'm not going to put this against The Dark Knight or the Dark Knight Rises or Batman Begins, because I feel like these movies are good enough to stand on their own without being compared to anything else. That's just how I feel. Now, I will be honest. I'm not the biggest fan of this version of the Batmobile. But there is a very, very cool scene that takes place that I enjoyed, which is basically the introduction of the Batmobile. And yeah, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. The Batmobile, it's super, the design of it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But the way they introduced the Batmobile, the way that things just kind of come together and make sense, that was kind of sweet. That was a sweet moment. If the design would have been a little bit different, that would have been a lot better. But yeah. This movie is like, it's like vengeance and makeup. You know? He calls himself Vengeance. I don't even think they say the word Batman 5 times in this movie. Because then again, he's not necessarily Batman in this movie. He's Bruce Wayne. He's playing make believe almost. You know? He's dressing up in a costume and fighting bad guys. And getting hit in the back while fighting said bad guys. But yeah, I think this movie was great. After sleeping and thinking more about it, I think this movie was a great movie. Also, Colin Farrell's Penguin, who is unrecognizable because of all of the makeup that they put on him. I'm here for that TV show. I'm here for it. He does a fantastic job as the Penguin. And if you would have asked me who would I like to see play the Penguin, I don't think that Colin Farrell would have made my top 10 list. But what he did with this role, he did it well. He was cartoonish. He was funny. He was just doing all of the right things, and it all made sense. So I'm totally here for his HBO Max show. Yeah, and plus on top of that, this movie at the time of this recording, I believe, has made over $600 million worldwide. So it's a box office smash. It won. And I think one of the real moments I was rooting for this movie to do well is because of how much of a pandemic movie it was. With, them having to delay filming due to people getting COVID, and they had this happen and that happened, and people were complaining about Robert Pattinson not working out. But I'm here to say that a lot of that stuff did not matter, because this movie is a good movie, a great movie. Not fantastic, not the best movie that's come out this year, but it's a good watch. It's a really good watch. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Shouts out to that whole team for sticking with that movie and making that movie a whole thing. And shout out to Zoe Kravitz for being as fine as she is. Yeah, Matt Reeves, you did your thing, man. I never had doubt, but it's good to know that a good movie came out of this pandemic. And I'm really interested to see how this movie ages. Because what I thought was hilarious about this movie, I thought it was hilarious how this movie had a cult following almost before it was even released. And when it comes to cult followings, that's usually backwards. Most movies with cult followings, they come out and then years later, way down the line, is when that cult membership kind of builds. But this movie had that before it released. So that's been pretty interesting to see. It's been interesting to see people go to this movie and see it 3 and 4 times in a row. Because this movie is 3 hours long. So I don't even know why. But I know why. I just know that I would not be able to. But yeah, The Batman. Surprisingly loved it. Not mad at the movie at all. Glad that it is what it is. Now, when it comes to other movies that I loved, that I've seen recently, I gotta put X on that list. And if you don't know what X is the new movie that is distributed by A24. which is a distribution company, not a film studio, a distribution company. People get that confused a lot. Now, if you've seen movies distributed by A24, if you've seen Hereditary, if you've seen Midsommar, if you've seen The Witch or The Vivitch, however you want to pronounce it, if you've seen, I want to say Ex Machina, I believe is an A24 film. If you've seen those movies, if you've seen Uncut Gems, you know that these movies are not your conventional film. These are not your films that have a clear and candy-coated beginning, middle, and end. These movies have things happen in them that I don't want to say they scar you, but it's kind of hard to forget what you're seeing on screen. For example, I saw Hereditary for the first time when it came out in theaters, and I cannot get I can try to get the image out, but I cannot get the image of the young daughter's head after it was knocked off. Spoiler alert, by the way. After it was knocked off by a telephone pole with ants covering her head. That's a rough image that I just, I'll be chilling one day and I'll just think about Hereditary and I'm like, oh man, I just thought about Charlie's head on the ground with ants over it. But with that being said, this movie is kind of another one of those. It does things that are like, okay, it happened, I've seen it, but I can't get it out of my head. So a brief synopsis of X is a group of pornographic, I don't even know how to put this. They are making a porno film and they are going to a location to shoot said porno film. And it's a group of about, I want to say 6 people, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong. I should have calculated it before I even started. But yes, so they're going to this farm location to shoot a porno. And I was like, okay, cool. There has to be something else. But there is something else. I'm not going to say exactly what the twist is, but if you've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre and M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit, that's basically what this movie is. It's Texas Chainsaw Massacre with creepy old people. I'm not going to say what those old people are creepy. Well, I probably will say it. I'll go ahead and say it now. These old people in this movie are horny. They want to do the nasty, and they are frustrated. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. These old people want to do the nasty, and they're frustrated because they're old. They feel like they're out of their prime. They have health problems, and they are basically jealous of these young, sexy, I would say singles, but some of them are in relationships. But yeah, they're jealous of these young, sexed up adults to the point where they want to harm them. Now, this movie stars Mia Goth, who I've not seen a lot of, but I do know that she was married to Shia LaBeouf. Jenna Ortega is in this movie, as well as Brittany Snow, Martin Henderson. And I will say it was great seeing Martin Henderson in another role. I loved him in Torque. I don't know if y'all have seen Torque, but it's a goofy motorcycle early 2000s movie. You should definitely see it. And Kid Cudi is also in this movie. And I would say for most of the movie, Kid Cudi's character has his butt out. Like booty butt, naked butt out. Yeah, so if you're going into this movie and you don't mind seeing a black man's butt, be my guest. Go and watch the movie. But one of my favorite things about this movie is that it's just a dumb horror movie with some kills. Now, I was watching the movie, and about half of the movie is set up. It's almost like it's setting up for something big. It's almost like watching the fuse on a dynamite just kind of find its way to that gunpowder. That's basically what it's like. It's like getting to the point to watch a bomb go off. And I was wondering, like, this movie, there has to be something. And the setup wasn't even bad. I will say that the setup for this movie was not bad. I found myself laughing at certain parts. You know, it wasn't a bad watch or anything. It was just waiting on that something to happen, that big moment to happen. Because you know that you're at a horror film, people are going to die. It's just waiting on those deaths, those good, gory deaths. By the way, this movie takes place in like 1978 or 79, I believe. And it's like before video was a thing. Like, you know, recording videos and selling them was a thing, especially these kinds of pornographic films. And I was expecting some almost lazy and cliche kills. There were a couple of them, but everything else was just gruesome and nasty. Now, that's not a bad thing, by the way. I like me some nasty and gruesome kills. And it looks like they used a lot of practical effects in this movie. It's not much CGI in this movie. There's one death that's goofier than the rest, but it makes for the better movie. This movie does have some nudity. Granted, I went into this knowing that, but it doesn't have as much nudity as many other horror films have. There's body parts shown, but there's not a lot of, you know, the stuff that makes you want to turn your head. I think, yeah, Jackass Forever has more nudity than this movie. And I was expecting to be grossed out by the kills. That really wasn't the case. There were more gruesome kills in the show called The Boys, but that made for the movie to be better to me. Because it sets up a few things for future films. It's almost like this is the beginning of a franchise. That's what it felt like. And there's already been confirmed that they are working on a prequel film to this movie, which I'm pretty excited to see. It's going to show us how a character got to where they are in the movie. And I'm really excited to see what they do with that, knowing what happens to that character by the end of this movie. And also, like, I'm a big fan of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films. I'm a big fan of horror and barns and farms and country old white folk. I'm a fan of that kind of horror because that's the stuff that spooks me. If I'm walking down the road and a white man that's old comes out and he's got like a shotgun and he's yelling obscenities at me, I'm not gonna chase him. You know, that's, you know, everybody has their own thing that kind of, you know, scares them a little bit. But yeah, so this movie is like right up that alley. It takes place almost entirely on a farm. I mean, there are some scenes in their van, but there's not like much city life or anything going on. I think they were like a strip club when it starts, but other than that, like there's not much at all that's, you know, outside of Texas looking farmland. This movie's an 8 out of 10. It's absolutely an 8 out of 10. I love how simple this movie is. I love how you can just sit down and just watch it and not feel too many things afterwards. It almost feels like one of those cheesy sci-fi movies that would come on that would be a dumb movie. It wouldn't be good, but the kills were memorable. For example, there's this one movie I do remember watching on Sci-Fi when I was a little bit younger. And I just remember someone being behind a truck. And I think it was the bad guy was behind the truck. And the teenagers that were trying to get away put the truck in reverse and ran the guy over several times. I don't know what the name of the movie is. I don't know who any of the actors or actresses were. But I just remember that scene. That's what this movie felt like. Just something that you turn on, watch, turn your brain off, and your brain just captures something and you just never forget it. This is another movie that's a big breath of fresh air. It's not one of those horror movies that are trying too hard to be something that it's not. It's not artsy fartsy like Lamb or anything. It's just go in, watch this, people die, go home. You eat your popcorn or your candy or your Junior Mints and you just go home. That's all this movie is. And who can be mad at it? A movie in 2022 is movieing. I'm not mad at it. It's an 8 out of 10 film. It's a breath of fresh air. This movie is an HHM. It is a horny horror film. I repeat, this movie is a horny horror film. But I just can't find myself to be mad at it. But one more thing that I do like about this movie a lot, there's not a cliffhanger. It sets up things, but not in a, tune in next time for the next movie called XX or Y. The movie might be called Y. It's nothing like that. It's you get these revelations at the end, and it's like, oh, well, what are you going to do with that? The character just drives off, and it's like, okay, cool. I'm done with that. But give me more about the other plot line that happens in this movie. That's fine. I love it. I love this movie. It's 10 out of 10. I almost want to see this more. I want to see this again. I don't even want to see the Batman again right now. Like, I'm not in a big rush to see it, but I would definitely go back to the movies to watch X. I loved it. I was going to talk about Jujutsu Kaisen this episode, but I think I'm going to save that. All I will say is that what one of the characters does to another character in that movie, granted, it's an anime, but he just did him so dirty. I've seen that scene maybe 10 times since, and it's just like, bro, just fight back. Just fight back. But yeah, with that being said, I do want to I want to start a new segment. I want to start a segment where I give flowers to either one of my favorite content creators or one of my favorite film studios or directors. What say you? But I want to give a huge shout out to Spike Lee. We got to give Spike Lee his flowers. What Spike Lee has achieved in the industry that he's in, what Spike Lee has produced, and what Spike Lee continues to produce is something that I don't feel is talked about enough. Watching his films such as Crooklyn, watching many other films, and then, with his most recent film being The Five Bloods, that is crazy. And people look over that for some reason. That movie didn't get nearly as many nominations as it should have. Black Klansman, I feel, didn't get nearly as many nominations as it should have. So we got to give Spike Lee his flowers. So Spike Lee, if Spike Lee ever listens to this podcast, ever, just know that we love you. Continue doing you. You're that man. We're so proud of you, Spike Lee. You deserve everything that you've gotten and will continue to receive. Here are your flowers. We love you, Spike Lee. I just had to do it. I had to do it. I was just thinking about it the other night, and I was like, Spike Lee has done a whole lot, but he's just not talked about. And I don't remember there being like any events that just give Spike Lee his flowers. Spike Lee has broken barriers. He's given so many people a chance. It's kind of crazy how, we have directors such as Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan that have been doing a great job, but Spike Lee has been doing a great job, and on top of that has been doing it for as long as he has. Granted, he does have a few stinkers. I'm talking to you, Chirac. I'm talking to you. What was it? The Miracle on St. Anna, that movie. There are some stinkers, but there are more great films than there are stinkers from Spike Lee. So Spike Lee, if you're listening again, here are your flowers. I don't have any flowers to give you. Also, shout out to the person that did get flowers from me. Shout out to you. Also, if you're watching on YouTube and you see this beautiful new backdrop I have, I kind of had to do it for you guys. I felt like, it feels fresh. I feel fresher, It just feels fresh. It feels right to do more things. Also, like I said before, if you haven't followed me on Twitch yet, do so at twitch.tv/DamoGary. And real quick, I just want to give, like I said before, I got to do my shout outs, man. So shout out to my boy Greg. You know who you are. Shout out to my cousin Justin. Justin, congratulations to everything that you are receiving, bro. I'm so proud of you, man. You keep on shining. We'll keep having that conversation in the future. Shout out to my boy Hiley. Shout out to my boy Mr. Essential on YouTube. Proud of y'all boys, man. Everybody's doing their thing. Shout out to Lex. Shout out to Andrew. And of course, man, of course. I don't know I say this about every episode. But shout out to my guys over at RJCXD. We're going to link up soon. Best believe. I know it didn't happen this past weekend, but best believe it's going to happen next time. And Chris, just make sure that you see my message next time. And also, shout out to my boy Jason, man. Jason, love you, bro. Yeah. Shout out to all my guys, man. All my guys. If I'm missing anybody, you just got to slap me. We got to fight. That's it. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Dom Trap. It was about time. I know it's been a while, but I'm back. It's good to be back. It's good to live, you know. Glad that you guys are listening. Shouts out to the people listening on, listening on Apple Music and Spotify. Y'all are the real MVPs. Shout out to the people watching on YouTube. Let's keep sharing and liking, and commenting, and all that good stuff. This has been another episode of the Dom Trap. Let me say that one more time. This has been another episode of the Dom Trap, and I'm your host. I didn't even introduce myself at the beginning. That's how happy I was to talk to you guys. I completely forgot my intro, so I'll go ahead and do it now. I am your host with the most, your creator, your editor, your director, your best boy, your producer, even your executive producer. I am your first, your last, your everything. I go by the name of Dominique. This has been the Dom Trap. Thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned for the next few episodes. Like I said, got some guests and stuff on the horizon. So yes, have a great whatever it is until the next time you see me and I see you. Peace.